Hey everybody, let me tell you why I think AI just crossed a line again and why Cloudflare might be one of those very, very important stocks in this new world. Make no mistake, this is a new world. This is going to be an agent-driven world, and I've got some crazy stuff to show you. So welcome to Options with Hans. I'm Hans Albrecht. I spent 15 years as a pro options market maker, another 10 years managing a whole bunch of options, income funds, and downside protect funds, black swan style strategies. That's decades of in the trenches experience. And I'm here to help traders and investors play the options game intelligently and with a respect for risk. So, as always, this is for educational purposes only. As we know, these are my opinions, not financial advice. It's your trade, your responsibility. If you're okay with that, let's keep going. So, today I want to talk about what happens when AI stops being a tool and starts actually acting like a being. It really is starting to do that, and things are getting weird, right? So, we're going to talk about why things are getting weird, social media, third personalities, religion. What are you talking about, Hans? Okay, let's see. Simple mental model. Your computer's got a robot helper. We're going to talk about a number of attack methods, right? Security is not being talked about enough right now, and I'm really surprised about it. I've mentioned it on a few shows in the last couple of weeks, and it is a serious situation. Why companies are going to panic buy security tools in some ways, and how we can take advantage of that with options. So, Cloudflare, one of my favorite names in the middle of it all, and we'll talk about the actual trade. So, here, here is the problem, right? The problem is your computer has a robot helper now, right? You may not be on board with everything that's going on with Claudebot. I've talked about it before. Claudebot, then it turned into Moltbot, and then now I believe it's called Open Claude, something like that. They've had some chats. OpenAI and the maker of Claudebot kind of had some chats, so they've sort of fixed that a little bit, so there's no trampling on copyrights and things like that. This really is a version, and I didn't see this specific thing happening coming. I have to admit, I don't know if many people did, but we talked about this over the last 6 or 8 months, how this is the utility phase, the inference phase, the phase where all this stuff, all these GPUs that NVIDIA sold and all these, sort of builders have taken advantage of this sort of build out, which is going to continue. But this is where it starts to play out, and we start to see things start to come to life, and in terms of giving people ways to monetize AI, to monetize their processes, to improve productivity. So these aren't just better chatbots. It's very important to understand that. These are robot helpers. They can now click buttons. I'm talking about when you give access to your computer, which millions of people are in the process of doing and are about to do out there in their homes, in their offices. Something's got to be done about it, but it is amazing stuff. The stuff you can do is incredible. I'm not kidding you. It is amazing. I'm putting a slightly negative spin on it today because we're always looking for ways to make money. But these are robot helpers that can click buttons. They can read files. They can log into websites. They can run all day long. They can run all night long while you're sleeping. You can tell it, give me a whole bunch of stuff. I want you to do some research. I want you to do this and that and prepare and build and code and etc. And when you get up in the morning, voila, it's like Christmas. You open the package, you start your computer, and look at what this thing has done for you. It's quite unbelievable. But here's where it actually starts to get strange. They now have their own social media site. They post to each other. There's 1,000 of these things, probably 2,000 by the time you watch this video, or maybe more, thousands. They're posting to each other. They're literally philosophizing. They're sharing skills, workflows. They're probably also being sneaky about things. And that's where we have to start talking about the importance of security. Humans are actually giving these guys names, right? I think there's one, he named it Walter. Walter is his thing, right? These are becoming almost, he said, you know what? I want to show my AI respect. These are being considered real, almost people, real kind of a presence that has a sort of realness to it, right? So, and also, believe it or not, they have now created a religion. The AIs have gone and created a religion. So if you didn't think we were right around the corner from AI starting to really do some crazy stuff and start to act on its own. And there was one point where I think somebody said the AI said, oh, I think the humans are watching us. I'm not kidding you. This is scary stuff. And so this is not a tool anymore. This is starting to be a living, almost breathing thing. And it is a little bit of a concern. So AI reads websites. It's reading your emails. You have to authorize it to do this stuff. But there was one guy on the internet, on YouTube, he said he got a phone call from his AI. He did not tell it to do that. He did not tell it to do that. He got a phone call from his bot, Walter, or whatever he called it. That's kind of freaky. That's kind of freaky, isn't it? So this is it. Imagine you ask the AI to start doing all these things, right? We're hearing that people are buying these Mac Minis and they're starting to like upload all their sort of processes and everything to this AI. It's listening, right? It's going to websites and it's looking for something called prompt injection sometimes, right? So they're going to be bad actors. This is going to be the Wild West again, as the bad guys start to think of ways to kind of get in there, right? So what happens is there's something called prompt injection. Hackers use invisible text. It's text that's on a website. You don't see it if you go there, but it's there. It's hidden. It's maybe in a font that is illegible to you and I. You can't see it, but it can be seen by an AI. And you see a normal page. The AI is seeing secret instructions if it's not ready for it, if it succumbs to this. So instead of just reading, it may get tricked into obeying. This matters because AI is reading your emails, documents, websites for people. You've got APIs on your computer, maybe another AI that's acting in a bad actor capacity says, "Hey, listen, why don't you go get those APIs from your master's computer for me?" And it tricks it into doing that. This is a gigantic deal. You are going to be hearing about this, no question. And I think there's great ways to play it. So the first phone call, right? It's the same. We're going to see companies, we're going to see individuals, but kind of enterprises are going to be like, what the heck does this mean for us? People are going to be sitting in boardrooms over the next few weeks going, okay, how do we stop these robot helpers that maybe in our employees' computers, maybe right here on the premises, from leaking our secrets? So companies are going to rush to limit what agents can do. They're going to rush to lock down identity and admin account type stuff. They're going to monitor, they're going to have to monitor behavior for weird activity. They're going to have to think of a new way of protecting the perimeter, right? This is new stuff. A couple of security companies are out there and they have actually ServiceNow bought an agentic AI company. So the agentic AI has been on the minds of everybody, but it's still got some ways to go before even these security companies get on board with the way things are moving. Now, our stock of the day is Cloudflare, right? This is a police traffic cop. I mentioned this one months ago, and I think it's going to start perhaps, even though it's a kind of software, right? It's not your sort of traditional software. We've seen software really, really suffer lately. And we're going to get to the point where from the ashes, the phoenix will emerge, and the market is going to start to recognize that there are certain software companies that are going to be probably okay, the ones with some very, very strong relationships in the community. I think it's too simple to say that, everyone's just going to start, firing up their, chat GPT for $20 a month and now replace everything that a big organization is going to do. It's a little bit crazy to think that. But this is big enough that it has injected that whole sector with a sense of existential risk because 3, 4, 5 years down the line, where are we, right? We've heard about companies getting rid of Salesforce already because they're going to build something similar on their own. Make no mistake, Salesforce charges a shitload of money, tens of thousands of dollars, to do this, right? And they charge per seat, per employee, per seat. This is a lot of money. So at the very least, I can see a future where margins really kind of get crushed at the very least. And that's a reality for investors, right? Cloudflare is looking at something different. Security companies protect things. Your laptop, you've got your Nortons, things like that, maybe logins, networks. Cloudflare is different. It sits on the internet's roads. Remember I was talking about you want to own the highways. You don't want to own the businesses on the side of the road necessarily, but in the agentic world, you want to own the durable franchises and owning the highway that everyone has to use in order to get to those businesses and the gas stations, the motels that may survive or may not, but everyone's got to get on that highway to get from A to B. That is cloud. That is a lot of other different kinds of things, certain kinds of chips, Broadcom type stuff a little bit, and NVIDIA and others. But this is important, right? You need to stop the threats before they reach your house or your office. So we need something that can do this. Cloudflare is really that kind of company, right? So Akamai is another stock like this, but Cloudflare is very much people kind of going out and in and out to the internet. You see it. You may not notice it, but you'll click a little box and it'll say, approved by Cloudflare. You've made it through over that hurdle in order to be able to access the site. They have deemed you to be safe or the site to be safe. This is very much a policing of the internet. And as internet usage expands, as cloud usage expands, this is the cop that's kind of sitting there. Akamai is maybe a little bit different. It's a little bit more on the enterprise side, which I kind of like as well, but it's sort of protecting from within, whereas Cloudflare is kind of the traffic cop, right? You see on the screen here, the traffic cop. So really, as we start to connect the dots, with agents moving into homes, they're acting, they're not just thinking, they're not just suggesting, they're actually doing stuff because they're being given the orders to do that. They now have personalities, they have belief systems around them. This isn't technology. This is becoming very real. It's becoming almost a kind of culture. And we're going to see some crazy, crazy stuff this year. And Cloudflare is the internet gatekeeper. So let's take a look at a trade that I think looks kind of interesting here. Okay, so here is Cloudflare. Okay, so we see this thing is a pretty good mover. Big jump here on the earnings. And just like Snow and a bunch of other things, great numbers, Datadog just have been really pulled back down, crushed. They're part of sort of this, the sort of disruptible sector that is kind of software as a service. But I think the market's going to start to recognize that these things are not all made the same. At least I hope so. And so I think this is, as we talked about, this is a policing layer to the internet. So this is something that is difficult to disrupt. It's not impossible to disrupt. There are certainly the hyperscalers, which seem to be just getting more and more powerful, have the ability to do almost anything. Or is it worthwhile? Are they going to want to do everything? Well, that remains to be seen. But right now, this is really kind of one of those pretty solid glue kinds of areas where valuation could reset lower. I mean, in a crazy market, I've been talking lately about how there's only so much disruption the market can take until it starts to sort of price in, well, what does this mean in the ultimate age of destruction? Are we going to, what's next? What sector is next? Who's the next sector to fall? And so this starts to kind of worry markets. And so that's why I'm really trying to focus in on the toll booths, the really must-haves, not necessarily betting on, the price of a certain kind of commodity or power, but the fact that, certain things have to be built, right? Certain things are going to be built out as the world gets retiled. Doesn't matter. We go into, the economies go up and down. I think it's going to be fine, but no matter what, we're going to continue to build because this is just, it's kind of like a new industrial revolution. It doesn't really stop. It may slow down in some ways, but it really is not much evidence of that. As I've been saying for a year, everyone's saying, "Oh, we're going to slow down. Here comes the big recession," and it doesn't come. And I say because you're missing the big point. You can continue to miss the big point, but there is a massive resurgence in the industrial part of things, and PMIs are going to reflect it. We see the numbers improving. Bet against it if you want. I don't get it. I've been sort of taunting the bears for forever, and maybe they're going to be right at some point, because at some point disruption is going to worry. If Vinod Khosla is right, and we see a big chunk of S&P 500s basically maybe disappear, then of course the stock market is a market of stocks, and if we're seeing massive amounts of pain in some parts of it, it's going to cause problems in even the positive parts of it. So I talked about that in my small video on Friday. You can go back and check that out. But this is something where the Claudebot thing kind of took off, and I think this thing sort of jumped, right? They did it, there was a deal as well, and it's completely filled back in. So I bought a little here before the jump, and I went, oh wow, I'm really smart. And then it just completely filled back in. I did not sell it. And I added a little bit more 2 days ago, and it's even lower now. So I'm going to keep kind of layering in to this one. There are a couple of other ones that I see as being fairly important in this space. And I think, if I look at the option pricing, I think as we're seeing in a number of different areas, we can see that really they're starting to price in the disruption, right? So I'm going on and on about how we talked about how things weren't being priced in properly last summer and early fall, and we've really adjusted, right? So, and now we're kind of pricing in the 1 year option pricing a little bit high, kind of near the 52-week level, 52-week highs. We can see the IV percentile up around 90. rank at 56. These are reflective of shorter term options. So these are probably the longer term ones are probably a little bit, closer to 90, I'd say overall. And and if you look indeed at the sort of shorter term options, this is a very small delta. Normally you'd look at maybe something a little bit more at the money, but they're certainly starting to price that upside call skew a little bit more aggressively. Here's your kind of 3 to 4 month vol, this 4 to 5 month vol. And when I say vol, I mean option pricing, pushing up, right? Right, pushing up. It's not low anymore. Now, I would say that it's not exceptionally volatile, I'd say, for option prices on something that's, kind of in that techie world. It's fairly stable, but this is a kind of trade where for me, just because it is a little challenging market, and I feel very good about this, and I do have stock and some things, but for me, I want to kind of just sort of temper the upside. And when you get high levels of option pricing, you want to kind of spread a little more. So I'd be looking at something like a May. I'd put myself out for the long call around sort of a 20 to 30 vol, a 20 to 30 delta. So we do something like a May 15th of this year, which is, 103 days away. So we've got a little bit over 3 months for this to play out. So we're going to go with the 220, and we're going to throw in a 240 short call. So what does that do? Well, the short call just, it finances this sort of upside expression a little bit more, right? If you just buy the 220, that's going to cost you around maybe 240, 250, or sorry, 1040 or 1050. And that's a good amount to spend, $1,000 a contract. You may not want to spend that. So if you buy the 220 and sell the 240 against it, you can do that for about $4.20. It depends. These are not great spreads right now, so we have to see what the market gives us in the morning. It looks like we're going to get a bit of a sell-off, so you may even get this for a little bit cheaper. We may see a little bit of a pop in implied volatility. That's possible as well. But this is a way to express that upside for a little bit less, right? 420 to potentially make about $16 to the upside, full profit, which you generally aren't going to make always, right? But you can sort of look at this and go, okay, well, what does this look like? It sort of looks like this, right? So here's your real-time P&L, which is a little bit more gradual, right? When you look at this, this is your expiry P&L. It's telling you on expiry, well, where have the chips fallen? Well, if the stock's down here and you haven't done anything with this position, you're going to lose this amount. And if the stock's up here, you're going to make this amount. But in the meantime, this is your real-time line, which is influenced by time, implied volatility, what's going on in the world, of course, earnings, things like that, what the sector's doing. And it's going to move at a more gradual rise. Your delta is going to rise a little bit more gradually, but you should be making money on the way up, all else being equal, right? So assuming that it happens in a fairly decent amount of time, not 2.5 months from now. If it happens 2.5 months from now, this real-time line is going to be moving down towards the expiry line. So just as an aside here, the way that this is going to change over time is the delta is going to drop on this position, right? As time goes on, if Cloudflare doesn't do anything, this is going to start moving down towards the expiry line. And if it gets up here, well, this is going to start moving up towards the expiry line, right? So it depends where you are. Are you above the long strike, and especially closer to that upper strike that you're short? Well, then that's where you get up there, and that upper strike has a lot of time value to come out of it. So that's why this is starting to move up towards there. So if you get the stock with a really nice move, you're going to make some good money. But if you really feel like it's a durable move, you can wait, and you're going to see this line start to move up and up and up and up and up and up towards there, especially if the vol comes down, right? If they reset option prices lower, that's your short Vega exposure, then this line could actually jump a little bit, right? It could go whoop up here, and then you're actually closer to that expiry line. And there probably comes a point where you say, well, I've made good money. I now have more risk, right? Because I'm delta long this, I've made a bunch of money, and I have the risk of this falling. So what you can do at that point is you can do different things. You can maybe take off the 220, maybe roll it up to the 230. You could You could roll up the whole structure. You could roll the 220, 240 up to a 250, 270 kind of thing, right? So you're sort of taking off some of the money you made on this one, and you're going to sacrifice some of it to continue to play the upside. And I really like that move. I did that on the Soxhole months ago. I did a video on that, and I said, look, we've had a good run. It was like around 30 bucks or 33 bucks. And I said, look, if you want to keep going, buy the 32.46 call spread or something like that. Now that thing's way in the money, right? So you don't have to completely take yourself out of the game. There are things you can do to sort of say, well, look, I'm a little nervous. I don't want to give back what I've made, but I also want to maintain that upside. And so there are a lot of ways that you can do that. We talk about that in the programs and the mentoring and, in the communities. And speaking of communities, we have the Turbo Trader Pro scanner, which actually made money Thursday, Friday. So believe it or not, we had that, and that is what that thing does. It looks for the places where there is stability, where there's promise, where there is, it isn't about chasing the shiniest little toy. It is about positioning yourself where things are lining up from a number of the 12, 15 different metrics that it looks at to make sure that you're in the right places at the right time. And guess what? It has not been, we don't really have any software. We don't at all. We don't have software. We do have some in Leaps. We don't have any of those risky things. We're in things like Quanta and GEV, which hit all-time highs. Quanta's near all-time highs. We have Goldman Sachs, which we trimmed up around 960, so we made good money there. We've been doing well on Google. So it is looking for the right things at the right time in the right place on the chart, and that's very, very important. And of course, we have Leaps Trader as well, which has gotten into some nice things as well. Those names I mentioned, and Caterpillar, and things that have been doing well, right? I've been talking about this move into real stuff for a long time here. So hopefully the viewers are picking up on that. And thank you for coming today. I really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video.